Yeah, with that being said, and having played the trailer, again, I am joined by the two filmmakers behind the film that at 1 a.m. had me laughing audibly, like very loud, probably to the annoyance of my neighbors. So I just want to say, yeah, again, available in theaters and on demand November 1st. First up, introducing as someone who has written and directed and produced for Key and Peele, Duncanville, and Girls, I'd like to welcome Yassir Lester, to the panel. How are you doing today? Oh, I think you're muted.
Right,
There it
muted.
is.
Hello. I'm
Classic
back.
Zoom
I'm back.
meeting.
I'm back.
So,
Everyone, calm
Embarrassing.
down. Calm down. Isaiah, you shut up.
Embarrassing.
Isaiah, you shut up. Mute yourself. How's it going? How you doing?
hey, hey, doing great, doing great. And then our next panelist here is a writer, is also a writer, director, and producer in projects like Blackish, Duncanville, and The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon. Please welcome Isaiah Lester. How are you doing?
Well, how you guys doing?
Doing fantastic. With that being said, as much as this is a Q&A, I do also want to take the time to give Yassir and Isaiah their flowers because I don't know about you guys. This month has been insane. There's a reason they call it the spookiest month of the year. Having the time, having, an hour and a half to just really laugh, like triggered my asthma laugh. I'm always grateful for that. So thank you guys for that. And I just want to start off with, just giving you guys your flowers. You guys really created some characters and it's a premise that I just really enjoyed hanging out with.
Yeah.
So first of all, just starting off again, we're here for the gutter coming again November 1st. Please tell the people what the film is about.
I mean, very simply put, this is how I describe it to everyone. It's how I described it when I was first trying to I didn't even, to be clear, I wrote this movie as a joke and just gave it to a few people. And one of those people happened to be the writer and director of Napoleon Dynamite, Jared Hess. And Jared read it and was like, I want to help you get this made. I think you should direct it, but you don't know anything about directing. And your brother, Isaiah, is a director. So he should direct it and you should help him direct. And I was like, okay, fair. So that being said, um, it's literally Happy Gilmore if Happy was black and it was about bowling instead of golf. That's all you need to know. Like, there's no, when people like try to like dice and they're like, is this a statement on? I'm like, nope, there's no statement.
It's just stupid. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's about a guy named Walt who kind of he's like down on his luck. He can't find a job. His mother really needs money. He needs money himself. He finds a kind of a home at this crazy bowling alley called Alley Cats and is hired by a woman named Moselle. Befriends another woman who's kind of just a drunk in a bar there named Skunk. And they find out that they owe a lot of money and taxes. So Walt discovers a skill that he can bowl very well. And they decide to take him on tour to earn the money to save the bowling alley.
How I describe it is that it's an amazing pilot for a show that I would spend all the money on. Like I really, really enjoyed all just hanging out with these characters and just
Well,
the
it's interesting, young Chesco is I wrote it when I originally wrote it. I wrote it in 2017 and I filmed a little sizzle reel for it. And my wife, writer, actress, comedian, author Chelsea Devontes played the role of Skunk, and Rel Battle, who plays Brother Candy in the actual movie, played the Walt character. And I was like, I think this would be an interesting pilot. And I showed it to some people in old Hollywood, and they all told me it was the stupidest thing they'd ever seen, that there was no reason to try and pursue this any further. And I was like, okay, I guess I'll stop. And then a few years later, my wife was like, that bowling idea was super funny. You should write it again, but try it as like a movie. And I wrote it as a movie. And then COVID happened and people had no choice but to read things, because if you went outside, you would die. So
and it became a thing where it's like, this is so stupid, it just might work.
I mean, look, you just have to find, people who are your level of stupid or smart, and then things happen, I feel like. But anytime someone doesn't understand, you're just, you're kind of just throwing stuff into the wind or into the fire a little bit, because you're fighting an uphill battle as it is. I wouldn't, me personally, if someone like came to me and they're like, I have an amazing idea for like a Lord of the Rings spinoff, I'd be like, well, I don't know anything about Lord of the Rings, so I shouldn't be the person to tell you yes or no. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's really important when trying to tell a story. Does that make sense at all?
Yeah, and on just to piggyback off what Yassir said, it's a time waster. You're arguing about something in conflicting visions, when if you get somebody who's in line and you could be moving on whatever that thing is. And in old Hollywood, that time is money, and you have to move quick, and you have to make decisions quickly. And to have anybody who wasn't on the same wavelength, I think that's how we got so lucky with our cast and crew, is that it felt like everyone was kind of just in sync with each other on like what we were all trying to do.
That's really great to hear about that process. I really want to start this conversation in the beginning of each of your guys' respective careers. Just starting off is, when did each of you realize that you wanted to work in comedy and that you were good at it, notable at it? Who were some of the people that maybe pulled you aside and said that, you have what it takes?
I guess like my big thing in terms of like, when did I know I wanted to work in comedy? Or I guess for me, it's like I always wanted to be a writer. I think that was like my first step. And I kind of had a niche for comedy. We come from a very joking family. Me and Yassir have literally been making sketches together since we were like 8 and 10, and so that sensibility just kind of came naturally to me, I guess. And I discovered that like, I think that like laughter in anything, in any genre, is a weapon. Like, I feel like people never get sick of laughing, but they'll be sick of getting scared or sick of crying and other stuff like that. And when I figured that part out, I kind of just like utilized that to my benefit. And I guess like in terms of feeling accomplished, and I mean, on top of that, just being like, being around Yassir and his friends, we spent a lot of time in the Hollywood Improv back in the day, just like literally every single day there. Yassir was a doorman. I didn't have a job, and the only meal we'd eat a day was dinner at the Improv because we got it for free. So we were legitimately always there. And I think that's like where, at least for me personally, like I refined a sense of humor. And it's not just about like, because like thinking something's funny and having a sense of humor, I find, are very two different things. Like you can laugh at the one particular thing all the time. Like if your thing is like Instagram cringe videos, which my thing is, I find them very funny. And somebody else, like if there's like a comic from, England or somewhere else telling a joke and you just don't register that it's funny, I don't think you have a good sense of humor. And I think you have to have a good one to make comedy work for you. And I think for me, just to answer your question about kind of when I felt more accomplished, or I felt like I kind of landed, I would say that working with Jared Hess on Making History and Julia Sharp, just two people who are just very well accomplished in comedy, especially Julia Sharp, Goldie. My first job ever, like really leaned on me heavily to help him make that show. And it was just because he trusted me. And having that trust in someone, I was just like, oh, I'm doing the right thing. Like I'm carving a path for myself. And then ever since then, I've just tried to take that further.
For me, honestly, like, because me and Isaiah have very similar paths. The only difference, I would say, it's a big difference, but the difference is that I'm a performer and that he is not, right? Like he can just as easily do stand up or act if he wanted, but he cries.
Profusely. Sounds like
yeah. He's actually about to
that's not
right
true.
Yeah. But no, like so the validation of like being on stage is just much different than like making something and putting it on YouTube or on Instagram. Now, that being said, time has caught up to that. It used to be that if you did a joke on stage, you get laughter pretty immediately. And then, like this works, this doesn't, whatever, whatever. And for a while, the internet or social media, it's like you'd upload a sketch on YouTube like we used to back in the day. And, you have to wait for comments to come in. And, also if you don't know anyone, it's not like these things are getting billions of views. Now you can just throw something on Instagram. There's people that are trillionaires. Like, wouldn't it be crazy if you ate with your butt instead of your mouth? And then, like that makes, that has 2 million views. Pretty quickly, like if this is quote unquote funny or not. But I say all that to say that I guess like being on stage really helped me, and to Isaiah and me writing stuff together all the time. The one thing that I never did, and actually weirdly enough, me and Isaiah were talking about this earlier today, like a few hours ago, that a lot of comedians, stand-up comedians, never work on the like script writing side. They kind of just lean on, okay, I'm funny, I can get in a writer's room, or I can be an actor or whatever, and I'm just good enough on stage that hopefully people like me, and I'll kind of punch my ticket that way. I never trusted myself well enough to do that. So, as Isaiah said, we would literally, and by the way, when he said split a meal at the Improv or one meal a day, it was truly, this is not a joke, spinach artichoke dip and chips. Like we would split. Like, there was I refuse to get my like cholesterol checked, because like I just don't want to know what's happening in my body from my 20s, like what is stuck around. So like I always felt that funny, and I knew that Isaiah was funny, and if I could make him laugh and like my friends laugh who were funny and were a little more accomplished, that like, okay, this has to be it. But I'd say like, yeah, I guess, and the pitiful thing and the true thing is that like it just feels better when, a la Isaiah saying like, Jared Hess or Julius Sharp telling him he's funny. I can tell Isaiah he's funny all day, but like when like a successful person tells you, it does mean something more. You know what I mean? And so like when I started working a little more steady, and I'd worked on like Girls on HBO and whatever, just once these jobs started coming in, and it's like the first job is hard to get. I'm not downplaying that at all. The second job is harder. I feel like a lot of people can fall into a first job. A second job proves you were good at your first one a lot of times. And when I started getting the second job or the third job, I was like, oh, okay. Like at the very least, I'm not the worst person at this, And I also have a very inflated sense of ego. Like I don't have, like when people are like, I have imposter syndrome, a lot of times I'm like, y'all are lucky to be working with me. Like I have the complete opposite. And these are like people who are like millionaires. And I'm like, yo, what do you guys want from old Yassir's brain? And they're like, nothing. But I also think that to what Isaiah is saying also, like whether he admits it or not, he has an ego about himself too. Like we all should, if we want to be great at the thing.
I'll admit it.
Huh?
I'll admit it. I'll admit it right now in front of everyone.
Good. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
1,000%.
Okay. Yeah. And I think that anyone on this call, like if you don't have that, like you should doubt yourself only enough to keep improving, but you should never doubt yourself enough that it can hinder you. And so like, I think that's where you have to like ride that line. And I think both of us, like, we love our mom to death. She is a psycho who also has that that sense of ego, and like I think she really instilled it in us to be like, just don't stop. You're good,
Yeah, and I'll say like just the back on the ego thing is that like it comes from the work you put in. Like I feel like I'm better when I walk into a room because I put in the work and I don't rest on my laurels, and I just don't think I'm like Yassir was saying earlier, just like I don't think I'm just a personality, and that should be good enough to get me a job in a room. Nor is getting a job in a room my end all and be all. It's cool if it is. It's actually pretty self-aware when people are just like, this is what I want to do. I don't necessarily need to make my own show. I don't need to make my own movie. But there are a lot of people who don't feel that way, and they are that person. But they just don't care. Like, um, so when I look at that multimillionaire every once in a while, um, and yeah, I mean, he's kind of like sometimes they just look like dog food. You want to destroy them in the room. And I, like Yassir said, like I think that everybody should have that attitude.
Absolutely. I mean, it sounds a bit like sports in terms of like, yeah, you maintain that confidence or that ego by doing the work, by committing yourself to the process. So no, and I really appreciated that bar about doubt yourself enough to keep improving. I feel like that's something to keep notes on. And staying in terms of the inspiration realm and just developing your sense of humor. Because for me personally, as I mentioned, I was watching this past midnight to the annoyance of my neighbors, and I feel like that maybe have added what I enjoy, how I enjoyed the film was because it reminded me so much of the comedies that I grew up watching, particularly like late night sitcom shows. I think of obviously like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Jamie Foxx show, in terms of the way that the film is like built around Shanique Moore's charisma and just natural performing ability. And then you have such a great supporting cast around him to bounce off of and crazy situations. I grew up on David Wayne and Michael Showalter's Wet Hot American Summer, which is just so silly, just so silly. If you guys haven't watched it, definitely would recommend that. So I just want to ask, what kind of comedians or stories did you personally grow up watching that was foundational to the type of comedy that you resonate with and create?
My quickest version, I know we already kind of talked about Happy Gilmore, but our mom used to work in like a telecom center, and at sometimes when she had to work super late, our aunt would watch us, and she would always, like, look, it's the late 90s. People weren't worried about like gentle parenting and babysitting the way that they are now. So the idea of screen time wasn't a thing. It was just like, here's a television, leave me alone.
Mhm.
She would rent a movie for us, and I'm not kidding, I think for a year straight, every time she rented a movie for us, she was like, what do you guys want to watch? And we said Billy Madison. We watched Billy
Mhm.
Madison more than, I don't know, maybe any piece of media. Other things have caught up, but like it was just so formative. On top of like our mom would say, like, she would come home after we got home from school, but like do your homework, then watch TV or whatever. But Fresh Prince in Georgia used to have reruns at like 3:30. So we'd like sneak and watch Fresh Prince. And then, later on, of course, like the things you said, like Martin, Jamie Foxx, like all these shows. Um, but I'd also say as we got older, like weird things really started making us laugh. Like you brought up Wet Hot American Summer, but me and Isaiah watched, they had a show, just David
I was
Wayne.
going to bring this up. Yeah, Stella.
Yeah. Yeah. Stella, which was there. It was the three of them as a comedy troupe. It was, I genuinely believe one of the funniest shows Comedy Central ever made. They only did a season of it, if I
Yeah.
remember correctly, but it was like, I mean, thinking about bits now still make my eyes water because I want to
Yeah.
laugh so hard. And then in terms of movies or films, again, Billy Madison, Happy Gilmore, but like weird ones, like one of the big inspirations for this, and then I'll stop and hand over to Isaiah, but like the comedy of like Paul Thomas Anderson in a weird way really struck a chord with us. Punch Drunk Love, the comedy of Boogie Nights, that of course the movie takes a turn, but there's people don't give it its due for how funny it is in the first half. He really does a phenomenal job of making you laugh. And
Even like There Will Be Blood is hilarious. Like
yeah,
Daniel
yes,
Plainview's hilarious.
yes, like he really is just like a master of making you laugh when you're not supposed to, and like with pretty big, like, I don't want to say circumstance, but the laughs are bigger than you'd expect. Like seeing Philip Seymour Hoffman jump off the roof in
Yeah. Or like Frank TJ Mackey and Magnolia,
yeah, like, yeah,
Tom
those are
Cruise. Yeah.
big comedy moments, and so we kind of just took all those things and like put them in a blender. Honestly, for the script, again, I said I wrote it as a joke, and I did. I was just like, what are just the funniest things I can think of, and I put them all in there. And then Isaiah helped visually bring them to life with all of his influences that he'll talk about now.
Yeah, Yassir covered a lot of it. As we've gotten older, I feel like our viewing sensibilities have kind of drifted, not necessarily fully, but we like more different stuff now than we did. We were pretty lockstep when we were younger. Um, I'll say for me as well, like uh, I always liked something with a little heart in it as well. So like I liked like Freaks and Geeks. Freaks and Geeks was like a very stupid, fun show, except for like, you know, a handful of moments. Um, you said the thing about like Billy Madison. It's the same thing with like the David Spade and Chris Farley movies, like Tommy Boy, you know, all that kind of like weird, like the really great 90s SNL, like even like it's Pat movie, like super weird movies. I'm gonna get you, sucker. You know, I was actually just talking about Meteor Man to my friend yesterday because D'Angelo Russell uh, bleached his hair blonde, and I was like, he looks like a Gold Lord from Meteor Man. But yeah, I feel like that's pretty much the gist of it.
That's great. And also, you mentioning a lot of the, Adam Sandler produced and written movies. I think of the ones that his company's been produced with, like Benchwarmers,
Hmm.
and Dodgeball, which you're all again in that same realm of like just wacky sports films that follow these underdogs, and so yeah, no, that's really amazing to hear, and that and I'm about to have to play these clips back to watch some have some viewing material later on, and then just because I love you guys' comedy so much.
Hmm.
And yeah, so coming back to this film, you touched on this a little bit. It sounds like you were really like developing this film like from the jump. Talk to us a little bit about the process to get through it, and if there were any road bumps like once the project started getting greenlit. Like, what was that process like?
Yeah,
Oh,
sir.
buddy. Just go if you, I'll say this. Have you ever been on a road driving and you're like, whoa, that was a big pothole. And then a bigger pothole, you're like, damn, that was a big pothole.
Yeah,
Imagine
turn off the
the entire road
music.
with that the entire time. And you never got to your destination and you're just driving over potholes.
And then like the car would die, and you're like, oh man, at least it's over. But then it would start again, and you just keep going on the road.
It was, I'll say this, and we won't go into full detail just because it's like I genuinely don't think we want to dishearten anyone for making things, so we'll
Mhm.
keep our personal experience mostly out of this. The first half of it was weirdly relatively easy. We, like I said, I gave this script to Jared. Jared attached us as directors, but kept himself on as an executive producer, and it essentially gave us, like, I mean, I don't, without being too big, like essentially like knighted us and ordained us to be like, these are the guys that are directing the movie. If you guys want to make this movie with me as a part of the deal, these guys are directing it. So like we
Wow.
always had this weird blessing that like, look, I'll lay down in front of a train for that dude. Like he's
Oh
changed
yeah,
our
absolutely.
life
Yeah,
so many
absolutely.
ways. Like I genuinely, we have,
Hmm.
he's eaten like Easter dinner with our family. Like he's the guy.
Wow.
Um, and because I mean, like Napoleon Dynamite is, and by the way, we didn't super name it in our inspirations just now, but like there were so many moments in that movie that are homages to Jared specifically that are just one-off jokes. That is just like, we remember that from Napoleon Dynamite. Let's do it. Like just or certain shots, whatever. Um, so I say all of that to say the first half of the journey was pretty not easy, but it was easier than I know people have like, they're like, we couldn't find funding or this or that. Like all that stuff happened relatively quick. And by relative, I mean 2 years. I wrote it in 2020, beginning of 2020, and me and Isaiah were shooting it September of 2022, correct?
Right.
Like,
Yeah, that's right.
so even with an easy road, it was 2 years, and then we get in a post, we've shot it all, things are good, and we just start getting pummeled with like, you're now dealing with the studio, there's so many things, there's strikes happening as like quite literally as we're like trying to get our voiceovers done, and then because of the writers strike, there's like we technically can't write new ADR jokes, and so we have to kind of let the actors improvise. Then the actor strike happens, so like there's just thing after thing after thing, and we're like, oh my god, like, and then 2 years after that, we are now having a Zoom about it. So it's and look, I can only speak to myself, and Isaiah will take over, but like I personally believe the first half was much easier, but even when I say something is easy, and I remember someone reading this in an interview back in the day when like you're talking to Steven Spielberg about something, and he said how easy it was. And like when you read about the process, it was like 5 years. And I was like, that just seems impossible. And then now living it, I'm like, oh my God, like it really, it's the machine takes so long to start up, but once it starts, it's like moving, and you're just like making sure that you're like really holding on to what's that thing that you hold on to? If you're like
the railing?
I was thinking more of like when you're riding a horse, and clearly it's not the saddle.
The reins?
The reins.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, I forgot the word.
And real quick, before you go, one thing I would love for you to kind of tap into is like, how do you feel now, having, obviously talking about the process, but then also, as you mentioned, two years later after having finished it, now you're in a Zoom call actually promoting the movie and getting ready to discuss. I wonder how do you feel now currently? Is it very much like a sigh of relief, or are you just kind of still like in that mode a little bit, that fight or flight mode? Like just wanted to put that in there before you go. But yeah.
I mean, just like Yassir said, he said all the things, but I think the thing about making movies or making anything is that you have to expect something to not work out or not go as fast, or there be a million potholes, and in the moment, it's very hard. It's really hard to push through. Me and Yassir had a lot of late calls after hour-long meetings and hour-long calls, just like griping about what we just heard. Now, of course, it feels good, it's cool that people will get to see this thing that we really, went crazy over during that second half, like Yassir was saying. So there is some satisfaction there. And it's just like, for me personally, I'll say it's like, it's a battle scar you take with you. And hopefully you don't get stabbed in the same place twice on your next thing and bleed out or whatever, So it's a good feeling. It's still like, I think me and Yassir, the movie's not out yet. So there's still a little bit of like, how's it going to do? And are people going to go see it? And how are the new batch of reviews that are going to be? Because, our last big haul of reviews was during Sundance, really. That's when we had the most at once, I would say. So, and I'm also just that person that like, if it's not done, if it's not over, I'll be worried about it. And, but I will say that like, I feel good now, mostly because we are out of that phase. Because that phase was just so horrible, and the timing with the strikes and stuff was just very stressful. But ultimately, it's a good feeling. It's a good feeling to have people excited to see it and to be speaking to people who are, excited to see it. Yeah.
Well, and Isaiah usually beats me to this point, so I'm glad I get to do it. But and I know it's corny, and for everyone here who's listening, like, if you get to make something with people that you like love and respect, like it's just the best. Like, I mean, and I don't want to be like inspirational guy who is like, and we grew up eating mayonnaise, cheese rolls, and that's all we could afford. Like, like I'm not going to do all that, but like we went from a lot of, we didn't have the best childhood, but like, to go from that and like the dumb stuff we would make in our shared bedroom with all of us,
right.
Me, my brother, our sister, and our mom, to then having a movie that I got to make a movie with my best friend. It was my brother. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, there's just no, I don't know what could top this. And the fact that it's our first movie too, like, unless someone said, hey, I just think each of you individually deserve $20 million cash. You don't even have to make a movie. I just love you guys. Like, I don't know what other feeling could and someone just randomly giving us money just because we're brothers who love each other. Um, um, but I mean, truly, it's every time I like really stop and think about it, because you do get caught up in the like business stuff of it all, but to make something with your family or whoever it is that you guys attribute your best friend being, like, there's just there will be no better feeling than that. So
yeah, that's absolutely amazing. It makes me think. I remember watching it on Shark Tank. It makes me sound super sophisticated. I promise I don't. I just was like, I was just, I don't know. It was on, and they said, I think it was Charles Barkley. He was like, you don't worry about product as much as you want to invest in the people behind it. And I feel like you guys are a perfect tribute to that sentiment. So absolutely. Now, uh, shifting gears a little bit, going to the film itself. I just have a list here of the entire cast. You have Shamik Moore. You have Darcy Corden, who, if anyone watches The Good Place, she's hilarious. Jackie Harry, Paul Reiser, as like I think I've heard you describe as the Marv Albert of the film,
yes,
which is great. And I mean, you have, of course, Susan Sarandon. You have Susan Sarandon doing a WWE entrance into a bowling alley, like with a pop and like the way that they're having a good moment, and then all of a sudden the environment shifts, and then she's coming in with a like you have her. So I got to know like what that environment on set was like, and the energy, because it really shines through that everyone's just having fun and giving it their all, and so I have to imagine there was a lot of takes, a lot of spontaneity once the cameras got rolling, or was it a lot of like alts and try this out.
I'd say a little bit of both. I think to answer or just to address the first part of what you were saying, um, everybody was just down, and I think that was, I don't know if it was as intentional as it turned out. I don't know if it was I think it was kind of like a little bit of me and Yassir being cognizant of who we wanted to work with and not just who we would be working with. And also like we got really lucky with how it mixed together. And I think it was just like a testament to the vibe of everyone who came, and everyone came out to like work with us. And I think that even from like the crew side, we tried to give people opportunities that they hadn't really gotten yet and put them in roles that they hadn't had yet. And that can carry over to the cast as well. Like we were like, we are going to make Susan Sarandon a supervillain. And, we are going to make Shamik Moore a goofball. And I think there's something about being challenged. I can speak to Shamik because he's spoken about this, but like being challenged to do something that you don't usually do, and having, the guidance of two people who have your back and will do the thing, show you how to do the thing even dumber than you do it, make them feel safe. And I think that safety permeated throughout our set. And because of that, they were able to like rip off each other and do certain things. There was a lot of ad lib in it. There was a lot of alts in it too. Like me, Yassir, and Paul would just hang out with each other and come up with alts for his character to say. Same thing with Darcy. She was very receptive to those kind of pitches as well. Yeah, everyone was just stupid. Like, I don't know how to explain it. Everyone was just like down to have a good time. Susan especially was like eager to do something like this. Like she was excited to play a whack job character essentially. So I think it was just like the willingness for me. And like I said, getting a little bit lucky, creating a safe environment. So when we're pitching to them or they're pitching to us or they need another take, they can ask for it and know that everything's going to be cool.
Yeah. I mean, just to what Isaiah is saying, like very quickly, like we just metaphorically just kind of built a wall around the set, and it was just like, you can be weird here, and everyone took that how they wanted and ran with it, like the first week of shooting, Isaiah got COVID, and so he was Zoom directing while I was on set, and so we were like exchanging notes and blah blah blah, and like, Shamik comes from the goofiest thing he's done really is Spider-Verse. You know what I'm saying? Like everything else he's had to, even Dope, where he's funny, he still has to give somewhat of a, more grounded performance. And with this, we were just like, you can just talk the way you talk, because I mean this sincerely, like we had the idea to cast him solely based off the fact that we like Spider-Verse and his voice and thought he could be weird. We thought he could be weird. We had never seen it. We went to dinner with him and we're like, this dude's a full psycho. This is perfect. Like, like.
Oh yeah, the New York dinner. I almost forgot about that.
Oh, buddy, the New
York
dinner.
the first meeting of Shamik. Yeah.
Yeah. I say all that to say that we just really allowed everyone to just like, once we told like, Shamik, you can be you. And for people that end up seeing the movie later, there's a weird thing that he pretends to be a robot in a scene. And like, that was literally all him. Like, you just allow these people. I think that like, and it sounds corny, but if you trust the people, if you get professionals, whether they're like famous or not, and you trust them, good things will happen. And that's so much of what, like, I think what is wrong with entertainment right now in general is that like, there's so many gatekeepers being like, we got to do this, and Star Wars only does this, and Marvel does this, and it's just like, no. But like, if you just allowed creative people to be creative, you will get the better version of the thing that you want, and I think that me and Isaiah really tried to foster that environment. And I'm just emphasizing what he said. I think that we really tried, and it worked. Sometimes it didn't work, but most of the time it worked.
Well, first of all, finger snaps on the gatekeeping and just letting creatives be creative. Absolutely. I think that is absolutely needs to be proclaimed for sure. Now we have a couple quick questions here from the universe and yeah, we'll get to it real quick. And a question I also had, because this film is packed with so many just throwaway lines and details that you don't give like too much emphasis on, but if you are paying attention, it's just like, this is the funny thing. Like there's a reference to, I'm not going to spoil it for everyone, but there's a reference to 50 Cent's Get Rich or Die Trying album that popped me. The way Darcy delivers lines, and this is in the trailer. Like, I'd like to wrestle Timothy Chalamet just to see what would happen. So I would just love to give y'all a real quick opportunity to just like, what's one detail, one little thing, a creative choice that you really enjoyed that you'd like people to notice when they go in to watch The Gutter?
Oh, no, you go first. I have to think of mine.
What do I want people to notice the most?
Or just a personal thing that you were like
a thing that you're into, that like a joke in the movie or something.
Yeah, no, I know. That's what I'm saying. Like, I really, and this is like so blowing smoke up our own butts, so I'm sorry. But so the script was written, and it was like, I mean, there were a billion jokes in the script. Then Isaiah would come on set and we would alt those billion jokes. Then the actors would come on set and we'd alt those billions of jokes. So just for anyone who ends up watching it at home, and you've already said it, Francesco, but like every joke, I promise you, has a joke right behind it. So like,
there's 100 in there.
Like, if you're gonna watch it in a theater, please also watch it at home, because it's so corny to say. The movie is actually twice as funny as you think it is upon the first time you saw it. I just trying to think of what, like, I have so many favorite things. It's really hard. It looks like you thought of one, so I'll let you go, but
no, I was mostly just thinking about, like, I mean, the things that I think are super funny, the Tony Baker scene.
Yeah.
I think the sneaky 9/11 joke that we have always makes me laugh. When Walt's getting a haircut. Yeah, that's one of my favorite ones. And also, like, neither one of us can take credit for this, but Susan does something so funny at the beginning of the intro, sorry, at the end, she does something funny at the beginning of her intro, but after she sits down and she sees them, something
Oh,
else.
dude.
Yeah, like
Every
to me,
time.
I think that is like one of the funniest things in the movie, and she just did it by herself. It's hilarious.
It's like again, it's if you allow people to be funny in funny situations, they will fucking shock you. Susan Sarandon, like you're like
she's a killer.
We missed out on some fucking hilarious Susan Sarandon movies because people are like, well, it's Susan Sarandon. I can only, she has to be in Thelma and Louise or Stepmom or blah blah blah. She is a genius. Like, and Isaiah always quotes this from a phone call we had with her. But she really thinks about her characters, and she really she was on the phone with us, and she was like, I want to create this look. Like, what will my bobblehead look like? Like, that's what I want to look like. And she thinks about everything from every angle to the point where one time me and Isaiah were pitching a joke to her on set. She was like, I don't like that. That's not funny. And we were like, okay, well, can you please do it anyway? And then and then when she said it, she got the joke and was like, oh, okay. And it's in the movie. But like the point is that like, man, I don't know. The thing Isaiah pointed out about Susan, there's a Paul Reiser line from when he's first introducing his show for the first time.
Oh, yeah.
He says a line where he's talking about a phrase of the title of the show, and he goes, and I thought of that first. It's the way he says it very angrily. That wasn't meant to be the tone, but it's so fun.
Paul Reiser also is a killer. Funny. Yeah, he's a killer.
Like,
yeah,
and like, I don't know. I don't want to be like Quentin Tarantino, like we brought back John Travolta a la Pulp Fiction, but like, I just think you're going to see performances from people that you haven't seen in such a long time that you're like, God damn, that person's incredible. And like, we just hadn't, Paul's biggest thing, his kind of resurgence started with Reboot on Hulu. And now, he's everywhere. So like with him and Susan, I think we're in a very blessed position to have them in our movie as they're, blowing up again. Fucking Adam Brody is so goddamn funny in this movie. He's in it for a minute.
Yeah, he's great.
There's a line that Darcy says when he pops in that
popped me. I know the line.
Very much so. Here we go. I got one last question for you guys before we got to wrap. And bringing it back to just your guys' journey in your career. Was one piece of advice, suggestions for like just resources or things that people aspiring to work in comedy or just in writing in general that they can use to develop their style or just develop their voice. What's one piece of advice that you'd like to share with them?
Advice I give on this in general when it comes to like writing or being creative is like see other people's work, read other people's work, befriend people who do what you want to do but a little bit different, and just always be thinking about the thing you want to make. And in terms of like how do you get started, like the best piece of advice I got was from a woman who used to work for NBC. I actually, she still might work there. She just hasn't returned my texts in a number of years. But there are these writing,
Lauren
Anderson. Yeah. I haven't heard from her in like 3 years. I try to text her like once a year.
It's over. We got to let that go.
Yeah, I don't know what happened, but but there are great writing programs and workshops and directing writing programs and workshops that as you're seeking work individually, you can apply to and reapply to and reapply to so you can, try to break through. When I was working at Blackish, we promoted from the writing program to writer 4 different people who came through the ABC program. So it is a real thing. I do think like, it's going to be a struggle and all that stuff and blah, blah, blah. You're going to hear that everywhere. It's not easy. It's not. But I think there are things you could be doing while you're seeking like that set work or even working a regular job that's not in entertainment. There are things you can do. Like you're going to have to put in the hours, but there are resources you can go to try to break through like that.
Yeah. Cool. I mean, agree with everything he said, and I also, and it's the last thing that he just said that'll also just really hit home is like it's just so much time, and like time is really just gonna be the thing,
Yeah.
and like it just does like and I'm saying this as someone who knows it from stand up, who knows it from writing, who knows it from acting and direct, like all of it. I've seen it in every angle where like you in your heart, you're like, I know I'm good. I know I'm making good things. And then someone who's, you know, started 2 days ago is now like on a billboard and on Sunset. And you're like, how, like, what has happened? Like, I mean, it's literally happened to friends of mine that I started in stand up with a year later would be like, I'm on a private jet to Dubai again. Like,
Literally.
yeah. And I
Literally
was
somebody like that. Yeah.
yeah. And I truly, and again, this would be happening while me and Isaiah are splitting spinach artichoke dip and being like, I don't know whose cell phone is going to get cut off first, but if when that happens, one of us will need to borrow the other one's phone.
Right.
Or just tell mom we're doing okay. Now, so no matter how much that happens, it is time. And I genuinely believe this in my heart. Like, you know what to be focusing on. And again, I'm just picking back off that. Like, you know the thing to be focusing on. So focus on that. Like and be it the thing you love the most or the thing that you care about the most. Like, you know, like again, I've been lucky enough to do other things, but my sole purpose for moving to Hollywood was stand up and writing. And that's where I put my energy. And that's also where I've, you know, I stand up not as much, but like I've had so much success in writing because that's where I put my energy. And like to this day, me and Isaiah can text each other, not all the time. I'm old, I'm 40 now, but like text them at like 1 a.m. and like we'll both be writing something. And like that was our life, you know, but way more intense. Like I used to like work, come home, write till 4 a.m., wake up at 7:38 and just do the whole thing over and over and over again. So it's time and just like dedicating yourself to the like really, I know a lot of people be like, just throw everything against the wall and see what sticks. And I personally am not of that school of thought. I think that like if you focus that laser on the thing that you want the most, that is the thing that's going to come to fruition. And the other things will be attracted to that, whether, you know, that sounds woo-woo or not. But like I everything that I've done has come from stand up and writing, including directing a movie with my brother. You know what I'm saying? And so like that's where I'll always put my energy. And I think that like if people truly focus on it, we live in a world now where it's just like make the Instagram videos, do the writing, do the this, do the you know, and it's just like if it brings you happiness, do it. But that's just not how I feel about things. But yeah, focus the energy, I guess.
Got you. Very beautiful, comprehensive answers, fellas. Thank you so much. That's going to do it for us here. Thank you to the CSUEA and our friends at 42 West for helping to put this event together. Of course, thank you very much to Isaiah and my beanie twin, Yassir, for, you know, you know, you know what? Thank you guys for showing through, coming through and being so gracious with your time and insight. Again, The Gutter will be available in theaters and on demand November 1st. And it's absolutely hilarious. So again, thank you everyone. And thank you to our directors, our guests. And that'll do it for us here. Again, also real quick, this Q&A will be available on the CSUEA YouTube channel. If you guys want to watch it back, do all that stuff. And
Wait,
yeah.
what mascot CSU? Real quick.
All of them, all the CSUs, all the 23 CSUs. So
no, I mean,
what's the mascot? What's the school mascot?
The singular mascot?
One singular mascot. I think you're
Does
looking
each
at them.
school have a different mascot?
Each school has a different mascot, and there's 23
That's
of them.
Crazy.
But I can take the responsibility of being the mascot for all of them. So
okay, Titans.
People are saying Titans.
Okay, we're shouting out the CSU Titans. That's
Titans.
our favorite team.
I was I was in
The two swords. The two
San
swords.
Francisco State. So shout out to my Gators. Shout out to Chomp Nation out there.
Okay.
Oh,
But
Aztecs. I like that too. Shout out
Aztecs are cool.
CSU Aztecs.
Okay.
We got pyramids. We got Aztec
Okay. All right,
pyramids.
y'all. We're
All right.
we're obviously inspired.
All right.
All right,
Thanks,
y'all. We're gonna
man.
log off before they get mad at me. Take care, y'all. Bye.
Appreciate it. Thanks.